I'm here with George Mandrik. Hey, welcome to Let's Talk Bitcoin.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
George is...
You can call me Mandrik.
It's weird to call you George. I know you as Mandrik. Mandrik is your nickname, and you have a business called George's Famous Baklava, right?
Yeah, it's actually just turned 4.
Oh, wow.
And I've been selling...
Is it potty trained yet?
Not yet, unfortunately.
Probably never will be.
Drip syrup everywhere.
What is George's Famous Baklava?
It's my website. I started as an agorist business that I began 4 years ago.
What is an agorist business for somebody who doesn't know that word?
I'm just basically doing my thing without asking for permission in the form of licenses or paying taxes or anything like that. It's just transactions I do between myself and my customers.
Nobody in your kitchen inserting themselves into that transaction, the same kitchen you feed your kids with, the same kitchen you feed yourself with, right?
Yeah.
That's where you make George's Famous Baklava. So, yeah, I think it's cool. So you've been doing this for 4 years and selling baklava on the internet. And you were one of my earliest friends who found out about Bitcoin and really grabbed onto it and said, I would like to make this a part of my business.
I'd say about 2 years ago, almost 2 years now. Really, the appeal was the fact that there were less fees than PayPal. Initially, that was the best thing for it. And, I could be like, I could just turn these into dollars and I'd get more money than if I just sold, had an order through PayPal. I'd be able to keep more of the dollars. Initially, I didn't even really understand Bitcoin. And that was good enough for me at the start.
Well, in 2011, somebody buys a pan of baklava for 10 Bitcoins. You're sitting pretty good right now, right?
Actually, my first order was 14 Bitcoins.
Wow.
From Bitcoin Jesus himself.
That is a golden pan of baklava.
Yeah.
And you had been selling baklava on eBay before that, right? And so you were intimately familiar with things like PayPal.
No, actually, that was the first time. When I started putting my baklava on eBay, that was when I began the business. I put it on eBay as pretty much just like a advertisement, and it linked to my site. I mean, people buy from eBay, but I'd rather they buy directly from the website. But it helps. It doesn't hurt to have it on eBay.
But you probably had enough orders on eBay that you knew some of the problems that can come with PayPal, right?
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. With PayPal, if somebody contests a purchase and for any reason, they're pretty much going to get a refund, and you're going to be screwed out of the money. I mean, that's my experience.
Take the baklava and run, eat it up, and say, right. I never got it, right?
And I mean, and if a customer comes to me and says, hey, I didn't like this, pretty much I always give a refund. If somebody really didn't like what they purchased from me, I'm not gonna try to dispute it or anything. Hey, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it. Here's, your money back. It's a cost of doing business kind of thing. But that doesn't happen often.
I've never seen anyone eat your food and not like it. Like your baklava is famous for a reason. Right. And you can see pictures of it if you go to your website, which is mandrik.com, mandrik.com. So you started using Bitcoin on your website in 2011. And what was your experience with it at first? Did you think, this is cool? Or did you have some issues with it?
No, I thought it was cool. I didn't really understand it. I didn't really have a grasp of Bitcoin at the time. And like I said, I was just converting them. I was selling them on Mt. Gox and depositing back into my Dwala account in cash, at least initially.
Oh, that was back when you could do that.
Yeah.
When you could get money out of Mt. Gox and when you could use Dwala with Mt. Gox.
It was so much easier in these days. I mean, Bitcoins were like $6 each or something like that. And at the time, I didn't have a full understanding of Bitcoin. I didn't know what I know now. But once I did, over time, within a few weeks, a couple months, I was learning more and more, and I started to realize I want to keep these. These are really cool. I want to use them for other things too, not just hold on to them because I think they're going to be worth more, but because it's just a really cool currency. I mean, it's a great way to do business. Now it's turned into my favorite way to be paid. Before I was really into silver, and I'm not so convinced on that anymore as a currency.
Yeah, I want to hear more about your thoughts on silver. And also, I know you have some thoughts on point of sale systems and how they might integrate with Bitcoin and merchants using Bitcoin. And I want to talk about all those things. But first, I'm curious, when you first started out, how many of your customers were paying with Bitcoin? What was the percentage, would you say?
It was small. I mean, people weren't using it that often, I don't think. There weren't that many businesses that were accepting it.
Did you ever get emails saying, what the hell is Bitcoin?
Not really. I mean, I didn't really have a lot of people asking me how to use it or anything like that. I can't really recall anybody reaching out to me like that. It seemed like people who were asking about Bitcoin already knew, and they were excited that I was accepting it, and they wanted to pay me in that. It was initially a small number, and obviously my Bitcoin business has grown since then.
At this point in 2013, what percentage of your orders come in and they're paying in Bitcoin now?
Probably like 20-25%.
Okay.
Something like that. It's still not the majority.
Still not the majority,
No.
but you are getting a steady supply of Bitcoins coming in for orders. And, that's one of the things that we've talked about on the show before is like, people write us and ask, well, how do I get Bitcoins? I don't feel like buying them. I don't want to make an account on one of these exchanges. And one way to get Bitcoins without doing all that is to basically work for them or sell a product where you get Bitcoins in return. And so that's one thing that you've done.
Yeah, that was really how I got interested in, when I became really interested in Bitcoin, that was the easiest way for me to acquire more. If I could use my labor, or my time to acquire Bitcoins rather than just trading cash for them, that was the way to go for me. And that worked out pretty well. It may seem like it's a little harder now because of the value of Bitcoin. It's not $6 per Bitcoin like it was when I first started. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I still think it's worth it to work for Bitcoin. And it's still the way I want to be paid. I want 100% of my income to be in Bitcoin. That's where I'd like to go.
Yeah, and I think maybe you've been going in that direction, which is really cool. But I just want to back up the train for a minute and say you're being really humble. Our listeners may not know you well unless they've been maybe to the Porcupine Freedom Festival. You were pretty famous for being the best food vendor at the Porcupine Freedom Festival at PorcFest, which is a liberty freedom festival that happens every summer in the woods of New Hampshire. You had a food stand there for the past, 3 or 4 years?
This was the 4th year.
Yep. Okay, so in June of this year, that was the 4th year. And you are since retired from cooking at PorcFest, but you had a very professional operation. I mean, like, you're a chef. You've worked in restaurants your whole life. You've had this baklava business for 4 years. You've been doing food stands at camping festivals and stuff like that. And so you've also dealt with a lot of libertarians who go to these festivals and they want to pay in silver and alternative currencies and silver dimes and maybe even Bitcoin. What was your experience, I guess, with that? Like, how did alternative payments kind of evolve for you as you ran your food stand from one year to the next at the Porcupine Freedom Festival?
It's a good question because it really did change every year. I mean, our first year, and the first couple of years, we were still really excited about silver because it's a team of us that make it happen, that made the stand happen, and it grew every year because it's just the work involved was incredible. Not one person could do that. It's insane. We just put it together, and it was a success every year for sure, and it just got bigger and bigger. But it started out, I'd say we loved silver. We were big fans of taking silver, any kind. It didn't matter.
Why did you love silver?
Well, I mean, I was still... There weren't really a lot of other options. If you looked before Bitcoin grew...
Was it just because it was an alternative to the government fiat money?
Right, and it was a way to do business outside of the dollar. And, if the dollar collapsed, silver, you feel like silver has this intrinsic value that, it's worth something because it's silver. It's been used for thousands of years. Or, same with gold. It has that for it. That was really, I loved it. I had the silver bug for many years. And as PorcFest grew, as our stand grew and Bitcoin became bigger, the more interested I became in Bitcoin, the more I realized, hey, this is really the way I want to be paid at the stand. Silver took a back seat because you can't. You all know the reasons why. You can't sit there and trade silver with somebody across the world in a fraction of a second or whatever. It just doesn't work like that with silver or even with cash. Crossing borders with silver, crossing borders with cash. It's one of those things that you just can't do. In huge amounts.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who came to the Porcupine Freedom Festival from Canada, for instance. For them, bringing those things across the border would be really difficult. But with something like Bitcoin, it would be absolutely no problem.
Right. I mean, you could have a brain wallet, and they're not going to know at customs,
Yeah, exactly. They can't search your brain just yet. Yeah.
No, not yet.
Okay, so how did that happen for you? Like when you noticed people were starting to buy more of your stuff with Bitcoins?
Well, 2012 was the first year we accepted Bitcoin, and I think the rate at the time was like $6 and change, maybe. That was the year that I was all aboard on Bitcoin. That's really when there were alternative currency panels that I had the opportunity to ask questions on, and they had one where they didn't even have really a representative of Bitcoin there. And, I kind of pointed out all the flaws I saw with other alternative currencies, like at the time, what were they, like dime cards and silver in general.
For people who don't know, a dime card is there are people who take silver dimes like mercury dimes or pre-1965 dimes which contain some percentage of silver. They're U.S. issued dimes. And then they'll put them in a card with like an image, or usually it's like some kind of graphic that's like really...
There's information on them that tell you about the value. They're pretty cool. I mean, they're neat things. They're educational tools, I think so.
And it's laminated, so you can trade it kind of like a trading card, but it has a dime in it. And, you know, in the past, there was it 2010 or 2011? A couple years ago, silver was on a spike during that summer that PorcFest was happening. It hit like $50 for an ounce of silver. These dime cards were going around, and people were wanting $5, $8, $10 for one of these silver dimes in a card.
I'm sure they got it for some of them. I mean,
they did, yeah.
You know, they had a premium on them, and people liked them. But that's the thing with silver at a thing like that. Like, people bring their silver to PorcFest because they think it's a cool thing. It's a novelty, though, in my opinion. It's great to use as payment at festivals like that, but it just doesn't work.
You can do that, right?
It just doesn't work on a bigger scale. Not in my opinion. I mean, peer to peer it works okay. You know, in person it can work. People can decide to do that, but you know, any kind of barter can really. But realistically, in the world, when you know you're doing online sales and stuff, it just doesn't work because it's like, okay, ship me this silver, and then, you know, pay all this money, have it come registered mail because it's silver. You know, and if it gets lost, you know, that sucks.
Oh yeah. So
there's just all these pains in the butts with dealing with it. It's not like that with Bitcoin. You know, it's just not there like that. So
yeah.
So
absolutely.
so the first year, the first year we started accepting Bitcoin, 2012, we had maybe 15 transactions, and we also got a bunch of physical Bitcoins at the time.
And how were people paying at that time? Did they have like bit bills, or were they sending it with their phone out in the woods where there's no internet?
Well, it was either some people had rolls of the original Cassatius physical Bitcoins, and we got some of those. I remember getting 2 for a $10 sandwich and being told to keep the change.
Wow,
that was pretty cool.
And then later on, they were like going for $10,000 on eBay.
Nah, I don't know about that. Not the singles.
Not the singles.
I think they were like 1,000 some.
Yeah.
At the most, maybe. When it was when Bitcoins were really spiking high.
That is a damn good sandwich.
yeah. So I mean, there was that, but we only did maybe between 15 and 20 transactions at the most in Bitcoin in 2012, and that was maybe, I think we got like 60 some Bitcoins, something like that, which wasn't a lot at the time. It was like $6 a Bitcoin, and then this year we did about 180 transactions in Bitcoin. So there was a lot of growth. Now it still wasn't the majority; it was still a small minority of business. But that's how much we took in, and people were way more interested in dealing in Bitcoin this year than they were the last, and it's going to grow every year, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know, because this is my last year cooking there, but I'm sure lots of stands, they need to accept Bitcoin because people want to pay in that way.
You were famous because you get really creative with your food. Like when you're cooking at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, okay, we all know libertarians love bacon, right? And so you have these sandwiches that's like weaved bacon that's baked in an oven, and it's like a mat of bacon with gyro meat and vegetables inside of it, rolled up, covered in cheese.
We pretty much
fries.
did. We pretty much use bacon weaves for everything, omelets, whatever. It's a great way to eat. It's a lot of fun, and that's what I like to do when I cook. I cook for fun at home. I like to cook for friends, and I like to do different things. When my girlfriend was in town, she's Canadian, she was visiting last week, I would just be like, tell me something you want and I'll make it. I don't care. Like that's how I am with cooking. It's a lot of fun for me, especially on a smaller scale at home. It's different. At the festival, it's still fun, but it's a lot of work. It can be very overwhelming.
I think that's cool that you have so much fun with it. You were saying that it gets overwhelming when you're cooking at PorcFest, and you had some people that you hired temporarily for the week to help out with the stand. Can you tell me about like how they were paid? Like, did they want to get paid in Bitcoins as time went on?
Yeah, the whole team was awesome. They were great people that were there at the stand this year.
From sun up to sundown.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
like
insane.
After midnight,
It was everybody who worked there was needed, but I think we ended up paying out mostly in cash because it costs money to get there. Most people are coming in from out of town. I mean, everybody who was working for us was. So they need, recoup some costs with cash. But some wanted portion paid in silver or portion paid in Bitcoin. I mean, that option's always open. It's like, that's what I ask them. I'm like, just tell me what you want to be paid in, and we'll arrange that. That's fine. Like I said, I'm somebody who wants to be paid in Bitcoin at all times, and that's really what I've been going for. And I'm at a point now where that's pretty much how I get paid, other than PayPal sales from Baklava. I just had some news that's about a day old where I just started working with blockchain.info. Roger Ver reached out to me, and I just started with them just today, pretty much yesterday, whatever.
Doing customer support kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I worked with BitInstant for a few months, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I love working in the Bitcoin world, and honestly, it's really what I want to be able to do. I like being able to do a job like that from anywhere, talking about the thing that one of the things that I love the most, Bitcoins, and working with amazing people who have been a huge part of why Bitcoin is what it is today. Like, that's just an amazing opportunity.
EasyDNS is the Swiss Army knife for your domain names, helping meet their customers' individual needs since 1998. EasyDNS has been an outspoken critic of SOPA and CISPA. EasyDNS was an early supporter of Bitcoin, and now they are proud to sponsor this show. Do business with a company that shares your values. Get a 13% discount when you pay with Bitcoin. Go to bitcoin.easydns.com and be sure to use discount code LTB.